Thank you for tuning in to Terry Swoop Videos. On today's video, I'm going to talk about how to be an independent thinker and a free thinker. The biggest problem I have with today's younger generation is there's far too many people that simply go along with what's popular on social media. The reason why I don't always go along with what's popular is because just because it's popular doesn't make it true. I'm a person that likes to base my opinion on the facts. And the facts don't care about your feelings. A lot of younger people in this woke Twitter cancel culture mob on social media, they believe if it's popular, it must be true. And that's completely ridiculous. And they believe if you're a minority, you should have to go along with the popular opinion within that minority. Like, for example, if a woman disagrees with the METOO movement, she's called a sellout and a traitor. If a transgender person disagrees with the alphabet community, they're called a sellout and a traitor. If a black person disagrees with Black Lives Matter, they're called a sellout and a traitor. And this is the problem I have with the cancel culture woke mafia on social media. These people have a herd mentality. If you're a person that's simply going along with the popular opinion, then you're not an independent thinker. Because the popular opinion is not always true. Like, for example, the popular opinion on social media, in Twitter, is that any man that identifies as a woman is a real woman, when that's just factually not true. And there's a lot of people in the woke Twitter cult who will say there's 90 different genders. There's not 90 different genders, there's 2 genders. And J.K. Rowling comes out and points this out. She comes out and says, look, just because you identify as a woman doesn't make you a biological woman. She supports the transgender community. She supports any person identifying what they want to identify with. But just because you identify as a woman doesn't make you a woman. Just because a man puts on a dress does not make them a biological woman. And she's being attacked and ridiculed for this. The cancel culture mob wants to cancel her. They want to destroy her entire career because she disagrees with the alphabet community. Now, Blair White is a transgender YouTuber. And she's a transgender YouTuber who doesn't go along with the alphabet community. And because of this, she's called a sellout and a traitor to her kind.
And I'm just going to go ahead and state my opinion before I even read these tweets. I, as a trans woman, did not find these offensive or transphobic at all. Literally at all. Now, if you're of the opinion that J.K. Rowling is transphobic or these tweets are transphobic, I asked you just for a second to really analyze them with me because I, as a trans woman, cannot find the transphobia. So these tweets read as, if sex isn't real, there's no same-sex attraction. If sex isn't real, the lived reality of women globally is erased. I know and love trans people, but erasing the concept of sex removes the ability of many to meaningfully discuss their lives. It isn't hate to speak the truth. So far, I'm not seeing any transphobia. This is all true. Biological sex is real. I know that there are certain segments of the population that do not believe that biological sex is real. I know that there is a very harsh stereotype on the trans community that we are science deniers and that we don't believe in biological sex. I am biologically male. Cue the title. That's just a fact. I am a trans woman. If you are a trans man, you are biologically female. That's kind of the whole point.
Blair White is one of my favorite YouTubers. She's a transgender person who uses common sense and logic. She identifies as a woman, but she knows she's still a biological male. That's just common sense. So when I see a lot of these people calling themselves biological women just because they identify as women is completely ridiculous. And there's nothing wrong with stating a biological fact. But using facts and logic is considered offensive now. So much respect for Blair White for defending J.K. Rowling. She believes that transitioning should be for people who are 18 and older. She doesn't believe kids should be allowed to transition. She believes if you're a child, you're too young to transition and have a sex change. And any person with common sense would agree with this. Kids who are 3 and 4 years old don't even know what sexuality is. So the ridiculous notion that you're going to give a child that young puberty blockers to change their gender and change their sexuality at that young of an age is completely ridiculous. And this is exactly what Blair White is talking about. She believes transitioning should be for adults who are 18 and older. And she doesn't believe simply identifying as a woman automatically makes you a biological woman. And this is exactly what J.K. Rowling is saying. And I'm also going to talk about the problems with the METOO movement and the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm going to start off with the METOO movement. The problem with the METOO movement is they're saying you should believe all women no matter what. And they completely ignore the fact that some women do lie. It's a proven fact that many men have been falsely convicted of crimes that they never committed. This is why we should believe women based on the facts, based on the evidence that's provided. And this is the reason why a lot of women don't support the METOO movement. There's a lot of women that have sons, that have nephews, that have been falsely accused. And this is why a lot of women have came out and spoken against the METOO movement. So when I see the woke Twitter mob attacking any woman who speaks against the METOO movement, it goes to show that they don't really care about women. They only care about women that agree with their ideology. If you're a woman who disagrees with the woke leftist ideology, you're going to be called a sellout and a traitor to your gender. And this is how ridiculous the woke Twitter mob has become. They believe any person that's a minority has to agree with the popular opinion within that minority. It's the same thing with the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, I support protesting police brutality, but I do not support burning down black businesses and burning down black neighborhoods. Every time somebody gets shot by the police, the Black Lives Matter protesters will come into the neighborhood and burn it down. And it's not just the burning down of the businesses, it's also the killing of many lives. There were 20 black people that were killed during the riots the last month. 20 black people were killed during the George Floyd riots. There's actually been more black people that have been murdered during the riots than have been murdered by police unarmed. Look at the numbers. Why don't their lives matter? Why does Black lives only matter when it fits the narrative? The majority of black people who are killed are not killed by the police. So to completely ignore all of those lives while only focusing on a small minority makes no sense to me. David Dorn's life should matter. There's numerous black people that were killed during these riots. And most of those 20 black people that were murdered during the riots were killed by other rioters. They were killed by the rioters. They weren't killed by the police. So a lot of people need to look at the bigger picture. If you really care about minority lives, then you should care about all minority lives. If you only care about black lives when it fits your narrative, then you really don't care about black lives. And if you support burning down black businesses and you think that's justice, that's not fighting for justice. You're just destroying the black neighborhoods and destroying the black community. And this is exactly why a lot of black people do not agree with the Black Lives Matter movement. I support Black lives, but I do not support the Black Lives Matter organization. Because the Black Lives Matter organization doesn't really care about black lives. They only care about black lives when the killer is white. And then they completely ignore it when the killer is black. There was a black serial killer that was just arrested. His name is Sam Little. This man murdered 90 black women all across the country. He murdered black women in Texas. He murdered black women in California. He murdered black women in Georgia. He murdered black women all over the country. But you didn't see one person from Black Lives Matter speak against this man. None of these so-called woke activists spoke against Sam Little when he was arrested. It's like they only care about black lives when it fits their narrative. And if you only care about black lives when it fits your narrative, then you really don't give a shit about black lives. Over the last month, over 100 black people have been killed in Chicago. Over 100 black people have been killed in Chicago from inner city violence. What sense does it make to completely ignore all of these black lives being lost? To focus on a small minority that's killed by the police? Again, we should protest police brutality, but we should also protest inner city violence. We should also protest against the gangs and thugs shooting up black neighborhoods every night. And when I see these so-called woke activists that want to completely ignore this, it goes to show that they really don't care about black lives. And this is the problem with a lot of the woke activists on social media. These people only care about what's popular. These people only care about clout on social media. They're not really about what they're saying they're about. Like I said before, if you're just going along with the popular opinion on every issue, you're not an independent thinker. You're not a free thinker if you're just going along with the popular opinion on social media on every single issue. And this is the problem I have with a lot of these celebrities. Most of these celebrities will simply go along with the popular opinion. It doesn't matter how ridiculous it is. They're going to go along with the popular opinion because they're afraid of hurting their careers. The only two celebrities that are not afraid to go against the popular opinion are J.K. Rowling and Terry Crews. These are the only two celebrities that are not afraid to go against the popular opinion. I have the deepest respect for J.K. Rowling for standing her ground and standing up for what she believes in. The same thing with Terry Crews. Terry Crews is standing his ground and standing up for what he believes in. I may not always agree with him, but I respect the fact that he's not afraid to go against cancel culture. He's not afraid to go against the popular narrative. So I just want to encourage people to be independent thinkers. Stop being afraid to speak against cancel culture. Stop being afraid to speak against the woke Twitter mob. A lot of people have different opinions about this topic. Leave a comment, rate, and subscribe.